Now we'll go to the Q&A session. So can I perhaps ask the three of you to come up here? On the chairs is a piece of paper which has got the details of the questions on notice, which will come up on screen as well. And I'd like to thank everyone who has submitted their questions on notice, because it's helpful to prepare answers if you know what you're going to be asked. So thank you for that. The first question comes from Mr. Gavin Alexander from Germany, who I hope is watching online. It's a difficult question, I think, and I don't know which of you would prefer to answer it, but I'll just read it. The original idea behind universities was to create places of calm and contemplation so that people interested in understanding the world could do so. Money, since its invention, has always been important, but recently has become an end to itself. And this is slowly corroding these places of reflection. UWA, to my knowledge, that's Gavin's knowledge, is the only such place with a reflection pond. So what is being done about this problem? Who would like to take up that question? Amit, thank you.
Others may join in. I've been to many, many campuses, worked in few. It is indeed true that this place is special. So it's not just the reflection pond, it's all the other things that we have. We have seen some pictures of the sunken garden, the other gardens. My best spot actually is the riverfront. Whenever I have some spare time during lunch, in other words, at a meeting, and I go and have my sandwich and walk along. I find I'm amazed that only a handful of colleagues are there having their lunch. As a boy, they're missing out. So I think we have that physical environment in space. The challenge for us is to create equal intellectual opportunity for the community to be able to contemplate. So we do some of it, but we surely can do more of it. So I certainly thank you for your question. And one of the reasons we would like to revitalize our campus life is actually to create that intellectual environment to be added to the physical environment that we have.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Amit. Any other of you like to add anything?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
I remember when I married a West Australian. That's how I got here. And we got here, and he'd been away for 17 years in the UK as an academic. And he said, you'll have to come and see UWA. And we walked in. And the first person we saw said, good day, Jerome. I haven't seen you for a few weeks. We should catch up. 17 years. I was a little taken aback. And then I saw the reflection pond, and it is the most beautiful way to see Perth. When you see that, you do actually understand the importance of the university, the place that is beautiful, and its tradition. And I think whatever you do, we should always maintain it beautifully. I know there's often fish in it. I love the ducks. I know there's often debate about whether there should be ducks on the reflection pond, but we should get over that because it is such a beautiful place and it reflects what this university is, which is a place of learning.
Yes, Jamal.
Actually, I do have something to add. I'm not sure whether everyone knows this, but so I think 1932 was when the reflection pool was made.
That's right.
And I think just about a few days before some foreign diplomats were supposed to come to the university, the workers that were making the reflection pond went on strike. And next day it was the guild councillors and the students were out there digging the reflection pond, and that was how I think it was completed. And I think the guild sees as the reflection pond as a sign of the relationship we have with the university, the strong bond we as students and the university have. And we have a big picture of the students digging the reflection pond in the guild offices even now. So yeah.
Fantastic, yes, thank you. Yeah, we're so lucky to have such a beautiful campus, and I'd just like to add that You know, reflection is something we don't seem to have much time for these days. You know, the world seems to be such a busy place, and thinking time becomes very important. So to have this beautiful campus to think and reflect is just wonderful. Now, question number 2, and this is from Pauline Tremlett, who's here today. Now, perhaps this has really been answered. Could the VC please bring convocation up to date about any discussions or proposals? Is there anything more you'd want to add about merging universities?
I think I covered that adequately. These are early stages, so that you can see me. We have received the terms of reference for the panel. We know who the panelists are, but beyond that, we are not there yet. I shared with you our philosophical approach. We're going to approach it from the point of view of what is good for WA. Others may or may not believe that we are capable of doing that as UWA, but we'll try. What we are doing right now, to add to that, is we are doing research so that any discussion that we participate in can be informed by data and evidence. And obviously, government has articulated, what the terms of reference are, and you can infer what they're looking at. I'll just highlight 2 of the 7 items listed. One, there is concern, and I personally share that. WA is not able to secure our pro rata share, if you will, of national research funding. So here lies the problem. Research funding in this country is already not adequate. We are way below, the list of, major industrialist countries in terms of R&D expenditure. And within Australia, WA on a per capita basis is at the lowest. We are below Tasmania. So that obviously is not good, and the government has noted that. So that's one area. Second area, subject to interpretation, government is interested in financial sustainability. Our business model, I personally don't like it, but it is what it is based on enrollment. If you don't have students, you don't have enough resources to support what you do. And the math is very clear, and on this particular issue, I'm happy to go public by saying we just don't have enough students to serve the business needs or resource needs of 5 universities. So these are the sort of things that government is interested in. It's not up to us to make the decision. The mandate is given to the panel, and panel is going to advise the government, and of course it'll be up to the government to make a decision. Once a decision is made or some direction is pointed out, we certainly can react to it. So what your university is doing, and administration is doing, we are looking at scenarios. How are we going to make the best of it if this happens? How are we going to make the best of it if that happens? So anyway, so this early stage, I will keep you posted.
Thank you very much. Question number 3 from Dr. Joan Pope, OAM. What is inhibiting the replacement of the sundial on Professor Shand's memorial in the sunken garden? Does his family know that it's missing?
I'm happy to take that on. We are working on it. I have been advised that we have some challenges in putting certain materials there. So we are looking at the more durable material, and a consultant is working on it. And once we have a plan, we'll share it with the family to see whether it meets their approval. And if it does, then we'll proceed with that.
Thank you. Now, a longer question from Dr. Ingrid van Bremen, who may be online. She wasn't able to be with us today. Ingrid is a senior lecturer in architectural conservation at the School of Design here at UWA. She has a question about the Park Avenue development boards that have been displayed publicly and the levels of significance attributed to various parts of the Park Avenue site. She's concerned that the lecture theatre is part of the original building design and construction, and it's also the oldest intact lecture theatre on the university campus, yet it's attributed only some significance, and then shown on the development proposals as demolished for new development right up to the back of the north-facing verandas of the Park Avenue buildings. This also cuts the main Park Avenue building off from light, air, Kings Park's views that are part of the value of the place. Who made these assessments and on what basis? If there is a conservation plan that explains this, where is it, please? And she also notes that she's been studying this site with students since 2016, using a whole range of sources. She's a real authority on the site. So again, I think I have to ask you about
Yes,
that, Amit.
Warden, if I may suggest that we handle the next question as well, because the answer more or less will be the same.
Yes, sure. Well, the next one, perhaps you could bring the next slide up. It's about the Callaway Music Centre, which is occupying that site. It was funded by UWA and two major ARC linkage grants, and it includes significant archival collections that make up a valuable sociological and anthropological record of Australia's musical history. And one of its major collections was acquired for UWA by the very well-known Japanese philanthropist Harisa Handa. He's the one who does the operas on the harbour. In the event of the Senate accepting the proposal regarding the development of the Park Avenue site, will the Vice-Chancellor indicate the future of the Callaway Music Centre, its unique, its staffing, potential value and financial support to continue?
Well, I'll try to answer both the questions. First of all, I thank both of the questioners for raising important issues and making suggestions. A little bit of context. University went through an exercise to look at our master plan. So there are some underpinnings to the master plan. For the size of the university that we are today, notwithstanding that we're going to grow, we have way more space than what is required. So when you look at locally, you'll find that we have space challenge. So this conclusion is drawn from the total amount of space, number of buildings that we have. So that's data point number one. Data point number two, most of those buildings that we have are in bad shape. So we have a lot of properties. We don't have capacity to maintain them. We have financial challenges. So even for this university, we just don't have enough resources to maintain the buildings that we have. And with the number of students we have today, the formulaic conclusion will lead us to think that we don't need that many buildings. So whether that's true or not, we have to look at it, school by school, what their needs are. But generally, that's what it is. So second one is we feel that it is better for us to consolidate our operations because we have a lot of things, a little bit here, a little bit there. So the master plan calls for, where possible, bringing those back to Crawley campus. So those are the two drivers. So if we do that, then the question becomes, what do we do with some of the lands that we have? Again, subject to debate, but depending on your criteria, we may conclude that some of the lands that we have, they're not quite attached to the Crawley campus. We may not need them. So the assumption at this point in time is that Park Avenue is one of those sites that university will not need. So as a result, and then we have this financial need to refurbish our buildings. Just to give you a sense of the cost that we're looking at, we estimate that just to modernize our existing facilities, we are looking at $800 million plus type of investment. So these are rough numbers. Just to rebuild our medical school buildings, they're very old now. At some point in time, sooner than later, we have to do something about it. We estimate it'll be $400 million just there. So this $800 million is just to renovate what we have, but some actually we have to build new facilities. So, so there is that incentive. Now the process. So I'm no expert. Warren has more knowledge. Some of you probably will have more knowledge as to how these sort of things work. But we need to rezone that site. And to rezone, we have to give them some indication what we have in mind. So the pictures or the diagrams that you have, it's really concept, to convey the concept to city planners, why we are trying to rezone it as mixed use. If we get that rezoning approved, the next stage, where we have this detailed plan, that again will create opportunity for the community to provide input, including university community, what we want to do, and at least one is colleague. So we will certainly take the observations into account, and I just want to assure you that the message will be heard clear and loudly, because there are 5 members of Senate, including yours truly, I'm ex officio member, and 4 senators are present in this room. So this will not be lost. So we'll certainly take this into account as we look at how that site is developed. So the key point here is that no decision has yet been made. The only decision our Senate has made is to go to the city to try to rezone it. Then the next stage of the process is yet to unfold. Thank you.
We are very happy. We are very happy that both the old Vice-Chancellor's house and the Park Avenue buildings, plus the lecture theatre, are on the State Heritage Register, so they're safe. And I know you have a particular view about the need to look after our historic buildings that the university has. Yeah. Okay, so thank you very much. We've got one last question. We're a bit later than we should be. This is from Dr. Mary Daly, and again, it's a tricky question. There's no slide for it because it came in a little late. How can governments globally change from continual growth economics to steady state or replacement economics? Tough question. Who'd like to have a go?
Well, I see you've got it to me. Is it to me?
Yes, to you.
So I read this question, and at the same time, I was listening to one of the economists on the radio talking about how governments are progressing, now democratic governments. We're not talking about those that don't have democracies. And one of the problems we have is tax. Nobody wants to pay more tax. Nobody wants to pay more tax to do anything. Education. We could have a superb education system if there was slightly more money for education that was from the public purse. But no one's prepared to put that money in. They only want to put money in for themselves. And I think that's exactly what the continual growth economics, and I'm not an economist, I'm just a plain humble scientist. It's always seemed to me that we've put our money in some odd places, and educating us all to the appropriate standard to take care of ourselves might be one of the ways to go, but it's not affordable. And so we, in this parlous situation where our current students are paying more money than any of us ever did for our education, and we expect them to not only do that, but then work. I was talking to a couple of very good students the other day who've decided they will never own their own house because they have their debts and now they have children. They will never own property in WA because they simply can't afford it against their salary that they get with the kind of wage deflation. So I think these kinds of questions are simplistic because you've got to put them into the democracy, and the democracy matters because we vote. And we vote regularly against inflation of taxes. So that, and that's what pays for education and the kind of things we talk about. At the moment, the stage 3 tax cuts that the current Prime Minister has inherited, and as part of the election to get elected said, I'll honour them. When we all know we should not be honouring them, we should take that money and put it back in the corpus and use it for education for children and for all the other things that we need. So I think unless we follow the Norwegian and the Finnish and to an extent the Swedish way of living, where there's a much more equitable society. In Norway, there are no private schools, there's only public schools. In Norway, they've taken the money from their oil reserves, unlike us with our iron ore reserves, and put it into a fund, which will make them one of the wealthiest countries forever in the world. I've forgotten the name of the fund. We have not taken that approach. We need to change our view and philosophical view. But we're a democracy, and right now we lose that option every time we have an election because we vote against it.
Thank you. Ahmed.
I can take the liberty of applying that question at the risk of actually not answering the question to universities. I mentioned about our growth plan. So whether it addresses the question or not, I think you would be interested in this. The current model of public university funding is not sustainable.
No.
Because it depends on growth, but there's a limit to growth. So the only reason we are contemplating growing is that in the past we haven't grown. Had we grown in the past, we would not have that capacity. Many universities in this country actually have reached, in my view, that maximum. So the challenge for us, for UWA, is to use this limited growth and find another way of sustaining our operations. So what that could be, we haven't discussed this because it's a complex issue. But I do have models that I can look to, where growth is not the main driver. If you look at great public universities, private universities, or elite universities, so if you look at Harvard, if you look at Oxford, their business model is not driven by growth. In fact, Harvard will not grow because the business model, if they grow, their student body, endowment per student declines. So they're at least 1/3 or more is funded by endowment.
Yeah.
So we are not going to be a private university for sure, we are a public university. But one of the solutions that we have is really to build our endowment. So our endowment right now, the capital part of it, corpus part of it, we have land assets and, if you will, liquid assets that we invest. Liquid assets about 400 million, land assets, let's say 400 million. So it's not enough, but it's not a bad position to be in. So what we need for our current budget, we actually need a $10 billion endowment. So the question is, can this university grow its endowment to 10 billion? I'll give you my aspirational answer to that. As I walk along the river, I have not seen as many expensive boats in one city as I have seen in Perth. And most of those are actually graduates of this university. So I tend to believe that we have great capacity in this state to follow that path, at least for one of our universities. And I'm optimistic. And the reason I'm optimistic is within a very short period of time, the community, our graduates and community supporters have helped us create 9 endowed chairs. Let me just share one powerful story with you, and you should be proud of your fellow alum. A graduate of this university who has moved to the States a long time ago learned through the grapevines, probably through some of you, that university is trying to create this endowed chair program through a matching one. We had no contact with this graduate of ours, PhD in chemistry. So he reached out to Dar. So, well, I would like to create an endowed chair in medicinal chemistry or biological chemistry. So, no ask, somebody just finds out that his university may need some help and calls us up, and now we have a chair. We haven't filled it. So I think that's what we need to do. But there are other things universities can contemplate doing, difficult, because we haven't had the conversation. So what has happened over the years? When you look at UWA, this is what you find. If you look at macro level, how many students we have, how many academic staff we have, and compare us with our peers across the country within WA, we have actually more staff per student than any other place. Curtin, for example, teaches almost twice the number of students with same number of staff. Right? So that's one data point. Data point number 2, when you go to our school, most of our schools, we don't have enough professors. So why is that? It's just that we have many disciplines that we cover, and we don't have enough students. So one of the problems with the academy, from my perspective, answering this question, we have proliferated specialization. We have this, we have this, we have that. So one thing we can do, it will require a lot of debate, actually to ask, do we really need these subspecialties? Can we consolidate? And our university actually had gone through some of these debates in the past. So I think there are so many different ways of looking at it, and not one will lead us to that sustainable model. Just going back to that endowment, so a model, something of the following kind might work. 1/3 of our resources coming from students, 1/3 from government, tax dollars, 1/3 from endowment. So, when you look at Harvard, endowments are a little bit on the higher side. So currently we get about $20 million from our endowment. So not bad, 20 million. Our operating budget is about 650 million. So if we can grow that 20 million into 200 million, right? Now you're talking. So it gets to that range. So I think that's where we're heading.
Thank you very much indeed. I'm aware that we're over time, and I'm very grateful for your willingness to answer these questions in such depth. It's really valuable. I mean, this is one of the important things about these general meetings, that we have 2 a year, convocation, is that we have the opportunity to have our Vice-Chancellor, our Guild President and a guest speaker in front of us, ready to answer all sorts of questions that we can throw at them. And not many universities have quite that sort of opportunity, so we're very fortunate for that, and I'd like to thank our guests. Just a couple of final things. Thank you to all the people who have assisted in the preparation of this event. Special thank you to Juanita Perez, our Convocation Officer. To Ashley Bradshaw and Kieran Hargraves from DAR, who've all played a major role in coordinating the arrangements, and I've mentioned Devon and Angela early. Thank you all. Thank you to Manny Tomeo, our photographer. We'll be using the photographs he captures tonight during our events in the future, so thank you for that, Manny. Thanks to the university function caterers who will be catering for us, and I'm all sure you're all dying for some canapes and a drink in a minute. And thanks to Brightside Live, who've recorded this meeting, which will soon be available online. So thank you guys, it's much appreciated. And thank you all for attending the meeting. And I now declare the autumn ordinary meeting of Convocation for 2023 closed at 8:20. Thank you very much.